2025 was another story of heartbreak for EMEA at Champions. Finalists have been sent in back-to-back events, yet 4 years have passed and still the trophy awaits its return to Berlin. One thing is for certain, this region knows what it means to come back stronger. With all of the roster rebuilds, it can be hard to keep up. I'm Hazza, and this is my team report for VCT EMEA Kickoff 2026. A complete guide to every team, player and transfer, so you have all you need to know before the matches start. Let's get into it. Last year's successes gave BBL their highest ever placement in VCT. This offseason they decided to leave behind those good memories for their golden generation, in the hopes that it will finally be enough to take them to the promised land of champions. This move shocked many, but should come to the surprise of none. BBL Pacific was undeniably one of the biggest assets to the organisation outside of the sale of their core to Vitality. The only Turkish team to ever claim a regional quadruple, multiple Ascension finals, and an EMEA tournament trophy. Promoting them to the main roster was always the goal, and achieving this in an age of agent fees and hefty contracts is a massive win. Many lucrative offers were sent Loiter and Laroc's way, but the most telling statement that they could make was denying them all. From a team with the slogan, "Know Your Culture," that's exactly what keeping the group together has achieved. In many ways, it feels like a direct response to their former teammates' decision to leave mid-season. Creven only joined at the start of 2025, but was a clear upgrade in the Sentinel role, and always provides big value from his attack-sided lurk timings, something which BBL will have to get right in VCT. This helps facilitate Rose's calling, which mirrors that of a traditional in-game leader. He isn't a heavy fragger, but if he gets put in a position where he has to win the round for his team, then you expect him to turn up like anyone else. Lover's Rock isn't the same player profile as Comeback, but his style has meshed exceptionally well with the roster. What he lacks in flashy moments, he makes up for in his ability to inspire his teammates vocally and contribute in other ways. It wasn't instant success when he joined, as they did struggle in Challengers EMEA 3, and it shouldn't be forgotten that this team is only mortal after all. Every now and then they are prone to switching off and under-delivering. We also saw it in Blender against Team Liquid Academy, but for such a young group, it's equally important to manage those expectations. After all, this is a moment that they've been waiting 2 years for since the loss to Apex in the first Ascension final. No team has had as much anticipation surrounding them before a VCT debut, and the fact that they haven't split off their separate ways only creates more weight for them to shoulder. I've never seen a team with so much natural confidence and so unapologetically themselves before though. It's hard not to back them to be at least one of the favourites along the road. I think they'd do very well to instantly qualify for a Masters, and what a story it would be. But a little bit more time might be needed before BBL get the green light for the global stage. This team writes its own introduction. For the first time since the partnered leagues were created, FNATIC failed to secure a domestic double across stage 1 and 2. This was a streak that they broke, ending up as Champions finalists. Despite their inability to bring home any silverware, this run culminated in their greatest ever finish at a Champions event. FNATIC did suffer from burnout a lot last year, which is something they will need to manage, playing a record amount of officials, having over 70 maps in the lead up to Paris, and the schedule only gets more intensive this year for teams, regardless of performance. That early loss in Stage 2 massively helped their chances though, having much more time to reset and prepare for the tournament. A soul-crushing 5th map loss to NRG after coming back from 11-1 down only 2 maps prior will forever be remembered in the hearts and minds of everyone lucky enough to witness it. When they did it on Icebox a couple years before, we figured it was never fated to repeat, yet here we are again. Boasters Black and Orange always seem to find a way to get results. The only thing plaguing them at the start of every year has been their kickoff performance. Since lock-in was removed, there have only been struggles climatizing to the new year, but this time things feel a little bit different. Only one change has been made to the starting roster for 2026, in arguably the biggest move of the off-season. Chronicle, a 3-time global event winner, now twice a Champions finalist, and the most decorated player in VCT history, has made his departure. Coming in his place is Vekaj, the second ever Frenchman in FNATIC, and destined to be a fan favourite. I was commentating when he was unveiled as the new player in their show match against GX, which you can watch on this channel, and immediately he gravitated to the crowd. The biggest difference from his time on Gentlemates is that he's not afraid to play with confidence in this team, and you could see that at the Super event as well. FNATIC have always scouted efficiently, and with the options they had on the table, it only speaks volumes about the quality of player they've got on their hands in Vakaj. His ability to play multiple roles, including duelist, is an attractive proposition to a team which loves to innovate and experiment compositionally. I see him having no issues slotting right in and building on the chemistry of this group. The loss of Scott as assistant coach to Vitality is also a big one, but in place they bring in Desmo, bringing his own wealth of experience from Leviathan in Americas. Milan continues to grow into the role of head coach, winning the award for best in the region, and as an ex-Champions winning analyst, he now has a proven track record. FNATIC's framework, of course, would not be complete without their performance coach as well, who has been invaluable to improving the team. The two signings from the start of last year, Kayak and Crashies, have transformed since their arrival. Kayak swept the EMEA awards, taking home Rookie, Duelist, and Player of the Year, as well as Most Improved. The Prince of Pistol Rounds crowned himself amongst the best we've seen in the region, and will hold on to that title for much time to come. Crashies looks brand new after rediscovering his talents in Berlin. Much of the supportive play we heralded him for previously has been integral to FNATIC, and his bond with the team continues to flourish. A first domestic title in Stage 1 was a real watershed moment, signalling his return to the big stages. The 2026 squad isn't expected to make an immediate return to a Champions final, nothing of the sort. But in some ways, it feels like they've reached a turning point now. And with this version of the lineup, I'm confident they'll head to Santiago for their first Kickoff Masters as an organisation. FUT are left in a strange place after how 2025 ended. No longer the Turkish favourite in an age where their region doesn't struggle to find itself represented. As much as the Turkish region has led talent discussions coming into the new year of Valorant in EMEA, it doesn't come from a well of infinite supply. Powerhouses in their own region, such as Eternal Fire, have already nailed on their plans for 2026. Accompanied by high buyouts staying commonplace in the past, it can be especially difficult to find the right replacements. FUT are still the only team to have made an international from Turkey for now, but I would be incredibly surprised if that remains at the end of the year. Stuck in the shadow of BBL, without their own golden generation, they had the last pick for new talent, which was made no easier by ULF's ascension earlier than most anticipated. The one silver lining for this team is Krostali. He returns to the FUT lineup for the second off-season in a row and will make his VCT debut this time. Picked up from Fenerbahce, their affiliate team, and now taken over as full academy roster, he provides a lot more flexibility on Initiator than the limited scope of Fade/KO which we had previously seen from Cracks. Gaius returns to coach the team, which he led to multiple international appearances over the years, but this time inherits a much younger core of players overall. Some smart scouting was then required to find Baha, who is a complete hidden gem of the Turkish scene. Talking to new assistant coach Bambino, he mentioned how the new player is a complete vibe merchant and should be an emotional leader for this team in keeping those levels up. This is a lot to ask for a player in their rookie year though, and with limited experience in playing challenges, let alone tier 1, there are a lot of parallels I'm seeing to Batu on Apex from 2025. High individual ceiling, but more questions than answers right now. Make no mistake, this will be a challenging year for FUT as an organisation. The landscape is continuing to shift as they currently sit behind the curve. Without a doubt, players like Zeus and Yetije can lift the brunt of the weight for this team. Anything is possible when they're in form, but we need to see a unit like the FUT of old if they are to escape the midfield and push for those same global events that they used to enjoy. Most of my viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you're enjoying the video and want to see more content like this, please consider helping me out and turning on notifications as well. Thanks, and let's get back to the teams. GiantX are the only team in the region to fully commit to their lineup from 2025. It's a crazy statement to be making coming out of what was a turbulent year, but one which ended in tremendous success. GX overcame so many issues, from their roles to their identity, and ended up gaining invaluable experience on the global stage. Bringing in Flickless and Ara from UCAM was a masterstroke, and the perfect example of what an affiliate team should offer to VCT rosters. Give it a run out against FNATIC and Apex before the end of the first stage, they both had time to climatise to the environment. This took place all while juggling their Challengers matches, which saw them end up as Stage 2 Grand Finalists in Spain. GiantX had a reasonably busy off-season, picking up another trophy in Project Blender, which was great to watch. The first few rounds were business as usual, but the team did have a few bumps in the road to navigate as things escalated, dropping maps to Ramboot and Liquid Academy. Triple elimination, therefore, will suit this team well, as it gives them time to set things in motion. At its climax, this tournament was the perfect reminder of how dangerously efficient GX can be. Their coordination in retakes and synergy off of one another was mesmerizing at times. Watching Grabinho star in the center of this has also been a real pleasure for a player who I believe deserved credit for how much he improved since leaving KOI. We saw a bit of experimentation at London Clash against FNATIC, where Flickless had to step up as in-game leader in place of Cloud due to visas, and I think this bodes well for his future, taking a more prominent role up in the team. Pipson has finally found a crop of players that works for his style of leadership. One of the reasons that they had such difficulties before was based on the alchemy of the roster rather than the talents of the players on the lineup. The Giants side that made champs in 23 was stacked with names who had much more experience than the original kickoff team last year, and therefore handled the strict approach way better. The difference with this current version is that where they lack lots of officials, they are much more receptive to this kind of motivation, and can find the answers for themselves in moments of doubt such as the Sentinels game. It's hard not to look at this group as the gatekeeper for international attendance this year, sitting right on the cusp of the more established names like FNATIC and Heretics, who have repeatedly made these events and gone deeper in playoffs, but now, in my estimations, inching ahead of the much remodeled Liquid side, which was able to beat them in the second stage, but then went on to not escape the groups in Paris. With just 3 spots to make Santiago though, I think GX might barely miss out on the top cut this time. It's a tough call to make when they've done so much right since Stage 2 began last year. Paris was the last chance for Los Niños to show their resolve as a roster and complete the story they started in Korea last year. Falling short on the international stage for the second time, changes were necessary and Minibu was cut from the lineup. The biggest conversation then became who would they pick up in his place and whether it would be another duelist or a flex player instead. Woot had been holding himself back from taking the spotlight since Shanghai 2024 when Minibu was absent and he was lights out leading them to their first global final. With the arrival of the recent 11.08 patch notes and comeback, we can start to see the vision for Team Heretics heading into 2026. Starting with their new player, Comeback was the #1 talent coming out of challenges in EMEA last year. A poster boy for Turkey's golden generation, waiting to be unleashed on the elite level. He waited, ineligible for VCT until Stage 2, but an unsuccessful campaign with Gentlemates left a deep scar on his confidence. Former coaches and teammates alike have suggested this early move rushed his development into a difficult environment with the extra pressure of fighting for the club's survival at that time, and many others, myself included, feel that he should have seen to completion the journey which he started with BBL Pacific in Premier. Whether you believe the hype or not, Comeback remains to be one of the most exciting talents we've seen in EMEA in recent years, and as glimmers of his potential still shone through from his stint on Mates, he is an integral component to elevating Heretics to the next level. A lack of international experience would be a concern, but given the history of teammates that he now finds himself surrounded by, who have all faced that same struggle as rookies in their own careers, he has the perfect facilities to play at his best. Expect to see a lot of Chamber from this team. The change in meta has given him a much more prominent place in Valorant, and with much less utility to clear him off angles, he is going to constantly be a threat. This is a pick we've seen Woot play as recently as Champions Paris, and one which Comeback is incredibly familiar with from his time in challenges and high sniper usage. I expect them to trade this responsibility across a few different maps, with Double Duelist also having plenty of relevancy currently. For me, Rians is best in slot, but this doesn't feel like any sort of a hot take, as he has been voted best initiator for 2 years running, a key part of this team. One of the questions for this team and its chemistry will be how quickly they can integrate the new player, as Minibu was like a brother to this group for the last 2 years, and literally the brother of their in-game leader. A really tough decision to make by cutting him, especially considering how important he was in boosting morale. Whereas Comeback is definitely a lot more reserved and still doesn't speak flawless English, fortunately he will have 2 other players to converse with in his mother tongue. Benji had a couple of rough spots last year, but has always given 100% in grinding the game, so I do expect him to improve, especially with the prospect of a home Masters later in the year. Team Heretics are another roster which have kept a winning core and upgraded in the right areas with firepower. There should be no critiques until they arrive under higher pressure, because there's been no issues putting away teams in a lower stakes environment without a single loss in their last 2 group stages. They always start a campaign strong and should be favourites to make Masters Santiago, especially with a triple elimination bracket in front of them. Karmine Corp made substantial investments to their VCT roster for 2025 in the hopes it would earn them back a homestand with their adoring fans in Paris. While that dream fizzled out, this year's team is a much more refined take, which builds on what did work for them before. Starting off with the 3 new pickups, KC have incredible firepower in this team, which puts them in the top 4 just on raw ability in this league, in my opinion. DOS9 started his rookie year in Pacific with blistering pace on BBL Esports, top fragging most of their games before they crumbled later on down the line. He trialled for KC on high ping and did the same for their off-season matches, then making the move to their Berlin office to join the rest of the team. Surrounded by other players and staff from the CIS territories, this should be a more consistent team environment for him to show his true potential than in Asia. I would consider him to be the import with the most expectation coming into the league, because he's already had a full year of playing in VCT to ready himself for what's at stake here in EMEA. Levin is a great bit of business for the Blues. Seeing him leave BBL, it was almost destined that he would land on his feet, and this could be a match made in heaven. It's no secret that Karmine Corp had been trying to upgrade in the duelist department for a while. Martin was moved on to Smoke several times last year, and Aves often found himself on a Phoenix. Levin offers a natural replacement for the Euro specialist that they lose out on in Martin, while providing the same coverage of Jet, his comfort pick, and showing a little bit more consistency from his performances last year. His hyper-aggressive style will suit really well with the team that he has supporting him now, with DOS9 in tandem, and I'm really excited to see them play against a few more VCT teams. Their run in Blender was put to an end by Vitality, but that was only the first opponent they faced from a Tier 1 level. Triple elimination gives us way more of a chance to see what this team can do against a similar caliber of opponent. Shados is the final new addition coming in after remaining absent from the end of Stage 1 onwards with Koi. He has always had good numbers in previous teams, but it will be interesting to see how his calling looks compared to Sadak last year, who was brought in specifically for that duty, renowned as one of the best to ever do it. A Champions finalist in his own right, Shados will give KC a much different look, and this will be one of the best chances he can get at a redemption story. For what has stayed the same, Stugetsu moving back to Sentinel, where he earned himself a Masters title in 2022, is a great move for both parties. Aves is one of the best up-and-coming flex players in the region, and I think this will be his best opportunity yet to show off his skill set as the main initiator for the team. Beginning their event against NAVI is the perfect barometer for where this KC side stands. While it won't be make or break, there are a few teams at a similar level around them who have also faced rebuilds. I don't expect a Masters appearance straight away, but I do think KC are my most likely candidate for Dark Horse. Team Liquid stepped to the 2026 stage with an almost impossible year to repeat behind them. The only team from EMEA last year to attend every single global event, a new achievement in their own storied history in Valorant, and without key pieces that put them there. This is a really interesting take on a roster rebuild. Liquid weren't able to tie down Kiko, who flocked the nest for World Champions NRG, an undeniable proposition for one of our top talents. Liquid have been transparent in their process and focused on raising their standards for this year in terms of overall player performance and commitments outside of the server. The introduction of Minibu is huge. He brings to the table a higher ceiling than Camo on Duelist and slightly more consistency, but this will still be a big area of focus in maintaining the level for what could be a very long year if they can get things right again. Purpo rejoins Nats as a player he previously worked with on Gambit, meaning he should already know how to get the best out of him, or at least have an idea. Last year, we saw a similar example with Trex, who brought Liquid up to winners of the second stage. On the other hand, perhaps not matching the profile of player that Liquid wanted for this year. Purpo had a great turnaround for himself since leaving GiantX, as he didn't sit idle and was able to win the third stage of France with Job Life since departing VCT. That was mostly on Duelist though, and now coming into a team where there is a bit of a role clash, it might end up sacrificing individual performance if Liquid can't find a way to balance out that responsibility. The most exciting signing for this team is Wayne. One of 5 imports in EMEA this year, the Singaporean brings super high potential from Pacific. Quickly rising to the top of Ewok's prospects list during Pacific Ascension, he was scouted by several teams. He enjoyed spells on X10 and Disguised in Southeast Asia before his most recent run on Motive Esports into that Ascension tournament. Wayne is an Omen made by trade, but can delve into an agent pool featuring a handful of duelists if required. However, looking at the background of this team, there's already 3 of them on the roster, and without a main smoker after Kiko left, this is the expectation for him. On the whole, it's hard to see this Liquid as one which has upgraded. There are meaningful transfers here, don't get me wrong, and I have full trust in both Lohan and Yautzin to get the best possible results out of the group, but they will struggle to simulate the same performances they had last year. Who knows? Many had low expectations for Liquid with Nats as in-game leader, and he disproved everyone as one of the best leaders that we are so lucky to have. At its core, there is a strong team here, but a couple of weaknesses which hold them back from being a top contender again, in my opinion. Gentlemates have now spent more time in VCT than they ever did in their run through challenges. They enter the league for a 3rd year, but only now for the first time as a VCT team replacing Koi, rather than the guest slot they failed to keep last time around. We've now seen many different versions of what a mate team could look like, and since 2024 that has been a commitment to an international lineup with Mini as one of the longest serving players in the club's history. He moves to a secondary caller to assist the new signings as they hope to start moving up the rankings in what otherwise has been a difficult spell in Berlin. Starzo has spent the last 2 years not wanting to primary IGL, but ending up on this role anyway. This time he's gone straight to it to fulfill his duties as captain from the start. Taking the reins in the second stage with Koi, and having to do the same a year later on Job Life after Unfake's exit, it's not been an easy road for the inaugural Champions winner. Job Life also had their team ripped to pieces before Ascension, so the expectation for him was set low. It's that same performance at Ascension though, which instead became a big reason why he was signed, and it's clear to see. This is the highest overall rating he's posted on VLR in his career. The Champs win, Masters, none of them compare. Albeit, there was a smaller sample size of matches, but seeing him play in those practice rooms without the weight of a whole year's work behind him and battling illness at the same time reminded people what they might have been missing out on. He still has a lot to prove in the partnership era, so it remains to be seen if he can replicate those levels, but Starso will be an emotional leader for this team and someone which mates are relying on stepping up. Equally so is Mini. Talking to players on this team, he has doubled down his involvement in helping shape the squad as a secondary caller. It will relinquish some responsibility as the mid-rounding did look difficult for him, but the numbers never faltered, and that's the version that mates will want. Glyph has been imported from Winthrop in NA off the back of his own Ascension run as in-game leader, but with the capacity to flex and find use across several roles. He told me in our interview about his love for the club and brand for a long time, so I'm sure that the Mates fanbase will have a new favourite to give their full support to heading into kickoff. He's another player which should be given the chance to let his mechanical side shine a bit more with relaxed requirements in offering ideas to each round. Martine is a big snipe for the club from French rivals Karmine Corp, and you can already see how much he's bought into the culture, posting photos with owner Squeezy on his arrival. In the last 2 years, few players have had a ceiling as high as Martine in EMEA. The issue has been keeping those performances consistent. He tried out smokes a few times for KC, but his duelist is still a cut above. We expect him to partner up as Yoru, as is often the case, with Bippo on a double duelist. The Italian is the first from his country in VCT history to reach the EMEA stage after how close Tag and Dynasty came in Ascension last September. Bippo has been a mainstay for the last couple years in challenges, leaving the Italian league for Maus alongside new assistant coach Kundi Kundi, who made their best ever run in VCL with him on the team. Paco also joins the coach slot as one of the most highly regarded coaches that we've seen coming out of Tier 2. He was instrumental in the development of talents such as Westside, Profec, and even the resurgence of Patatek on Diamond. More recently, he lived within the shelter of the Blue Wall, similarly to Martine, but as the coach of their academy wing, where he mentored players like Savaya, who we saw for FNATIC this offseason. As you can tell, his strength comes in the form of interpersonal skills to help communicate with players outside of the game, one of the reasons why he has found success in nurturing newer talents in the region. The question will be is if he's ready to take up the challenge of a mates roster which hasn't yet found results in VCT. Posturing that background against the difficulty in closing out maps from last year, I think mates have the right guy on their hands. It feels really hard to pitch them above the other options in the league at the start of this year, however. This is a project I see potential in, but only time will tell how far that ends up going. NAVI's new roster has firmly ushered in the next iteration of this team. Angel's position in the coach slot and Xiao's connection as in-game leader are remnants of their past, otherwise overshadowed by a promising Turkish core. They'll be looking to build on a very successful second stage last year, which placed them 4th overall, just a couple games short of their first Champions appearance since 2023. The first new addition is Filu. His time on Koi will be one to forget, a strong start which quickly slipped as the rest of the team also struggled in what proved to be their final stage in VCT. It surprised many to see him return so quickly and onto a legacy org like NAVI with their own ambitions, but that also says a lot about the environment he's come from and the untapped potential they believe they can get from him. We started to see a semblance of the synergy being built between him and Xiao in their off-season, and the slower pace doesn't suit him as much as a duelist player, so given the opportunity to dive in, that's when he starts to excel. Figuring out how that works in a team which have characteristically been one of the slowest in the league is one of a few challenges that they will need to overcome together. But he's not the only one trading another jersey for black and yellow this year. NAVI have also signed Sociable, a very special player who does so much for any team he's part of. Making his debut as the oldest rookie in VCT EMEA last year with BBL, he flexed across every single role to fulfill the team's requests. This will make him the perfect acquisition for Angel's new squad, where we expect a lot of variables in composition. It's not just the Ukrainian making up the backroom staff for this team, however. NAVI are lucky to call upon an extensive list of support for their efforts in 2026. Performance coach Zuza, responsible for the sparkling water explosion in Stage 2 due to its cognitive benefits, is back with the team for another year, bringing a lot of stability. Chippy also continues to be part of the setup as assistant coach, but they've brought in Flynn as an analyst for some extra brain power. Part of the Twisted Minds Ascension run, he was a driving force behind the MENA team, picking up wins which put them close to an Ascension game. On to the other two Turks. Hero was the landmark acquisition for this team and really came into his element last year by dragging them through multiple clutches and posting insane KD ratios on defender's side for some maps. Ruxic often put up ACS akin to that of a duelist on Omen and cemented himself as a terror, which rewarded him with the regional accolade of Controller Player of the Year, the only player on this list from a team which didn't make an international event, but just proving how consistent Ruxic was in 2025. For this, we saw a few experiments with him on roles other than smokes in this team's off-season campaign, as Sociable's previously mentioned flexibility affords this to them, but other than his chamber, I'd say it's a no-show. There will be times when he can pull this out on maps like Split, but Sociable can then also offer much of the same, so a decision will need to be made as to who is playing different roles. This NAVI team sits in the upper midfield rung for me, with a few other sides that feel hard to place at the moment. From the team sheet alone, the quality is enough to put them comfortably into the top 6, but pushing for a Masters spot this early in the year is a different conversation entirely. 2 years ago, the name PCIFIC Esports didn't mean anything in VCT. 2 years later, they say goodbye to the best challengers roster to ever do it on their ascension and must write a brand new legacy for themselves. This team is the biggest unknown, as it's the only roster which is completely different going into the first event of the year. So let's start with what we do know. The basis of this team comes from Liquid's Academy roster, Cupid and Ninja. Both players were a big part of the team which won the first ever stage of Challengers Northeast in a very demanding region and did well in the third stage of the EMEA tournament. Cupid was a hot topic at the start of last year, with some ex-players calling into question his prior results with SK and Digital Athletics, but what happened thereafter swiftly silenced these calls. He has done a lot of work to improve his mechanics throughout the year, and was very important in clutches for the team, going from mainly just a caller in the first stage to putting up some serious numbers by the time the third rolled around. Ninja also has a lot of potential, holding a trial with Liquid's main roster in Stage 1, but Serial was selected instead. His abilities have still been held in high regard, but required more development, which he has since achieved. Seven is a really exciting prospect who comes fresh off a second Ascension campaign with TSM, wounded by their finals defeat, but arriving at the destination of VCT all the same. He's spent his whole career in North America, representing some of the biggest names from 100 Thieves to T1, despite committing his last 3 years to TSM. In that time, he has reinvented himself as a player, from a duelist chambermain to flexing across multiple roles. If PCIFIC are to succeed, then he will be the glue which holds this roster together, but navigating a different culture away from what he's used to will definitely be a big ask. CNED is the one household name in this team, a former Champions winner making up the Turkish representation on this org. This should be a grand return to form. His time on FUT was just as troublesome for himself as his teammates, moving perhaps the greatest op player that the region has ever seen to smokes and away from his beloved duelist had bad news written all over it. It forced a lot of resources to be allocated in the wrong areas, and despite the occasional moment of brilliance, there was no big payoff. Now back in another international roster, the question for CNED will be how good his communication has become. This was always the most pertinent of his problems on NAVI when he first joined, unable to replicate the vocality of other duelists, which is a real requirement of the modern game with how utility focused it has become, especially on the current patch. CNED dominated in eras gone by, but so much has changed since. I still have reservations if this old god can be feared once more. For the first couple years of partnerships, we had never seen a German player in VCT as part of a main roster, the only host city without representation on home soil. That all changed when Gentlemates fielded Click and Prox. Although neither were able to keep their place, the one name many expected to see here sooner, and the next to fly the flag, is Alorante, Valorant's very own headshot machine, a stat which he has dominated throughout his stay in the second tier after falling from grace in the game's early years. Alo had made his way through DAC after leaving Team Heretics in 2022, appearing at the Ascension tournament with Focus last year for only the first time. Like the other players on this roster, he is no stranger to a Tier 1 trial, but will join the league as a rookie in the partnership era. His biggest strength will always be his mechanical ability, and as an anchor player, this suits him perfectly, and should have no problem coping with that side of the game. My concerns for this roster, though, stem from the overall lack of experience on the big stage. It would be one thing if they'd brought in a couple of new players, but 4 rookies and a veteran lacking game time could make this a slow burner. Triple elimination will make a huge difference to their chances, and the opportunity to play in Clash directly after is what Cupid will want to mature the group in a match environment, as he did with Liquid in Swiss last year. It's just too early right now to include them in the midfield battle. Perhaps the most surprising team to see lining up for kickoff is ULF Esports, given their meteoric rise from Premier in the middle of last year to VCT promotion at its conclusion, a feat that we were yet to see in EMEA. The rapid development since they first made an interregional appearance in the group stages of Challengers 2 was unprecedented. They found themselves winners of the following stage and never looked back. A key part of that development was the addition of Coach Vlad, bringing his own experience from Turkish Titans BBL and a short spell on NAVI. He has since departed in a move which not only shocked ULF fans, but left them questioning why it was made. His replacement Afro has been with the team since their arrival in the Turkish second tier, so he's spent plenty of time with the roster already. Unfortunately, further changes have also been necessary for this roster before they make their VCT debut. As they qualified with 2 ineligible players, both Sop and Echo, who starred in their Ascension run, won't be able to join until Stage 1. In terms of replacements, Demer is an excellent choice for kickoff. A stint as a substitute already under his belt at the end of Liquid Academy's first title-winning campaign in Northeast, and an impressive off-season performance with Bonk in Blender have proven his ability. The one thing he's been missing is a home to ply his trade with consistency, and unfortunately for him, ULF are expected to return to their old lineup soon. However, this is an unmissable chance for him to boost his own stocks in a LAN environment, which he's been hungry to do so for some time now. Stern isn't a new face in Turkey, coming from a strong background of competitive experience in their Challenger League, featuring on staple teams like Galacticos and Istanbul Wildcats. But despite this, he doesn't carry the same results to justify these appearances. He only played his first playoff matches of his career at the start of last year, just 5 series in total for the 5 years he's been active in their second tier of play. Back to the core, Neki has been with the team since its inception and remains to be the perfect example of what a fragging in-game leader looks like in modern VCT. High output and positive calling, which put ULF as the protagonists in every situation, can be a lot to handle. Teams will do well to shut him down, as well as Ordaz and Favian, who only joined the team less than a year ago, but have improved a lot since. Whenever we thought of ULF, the sentiment was always that they're ones for the future. As it would appear, their plans for 2026 are put on hold with this double substitution before the first stage. If the history of this club is anything to go by though, I still expect them to make a few teams sweat before Santiago. If last year's kickoff roster was considered a super team, this iteration of team vitality deserves the same respect. The core of BBL's leadership has been strengthened with some of the best players per role that we have seen in EMEA and beyond. Durka is still one of the best players in VCT, despite missing his first ever champions in 2025, being one of a select few to have attended all 4 before then. Need I remind you, he put up the highest ACS and best KD overall in Seoul 2024. The narrative last time around was that he had constantly been set up to fail, but he still walked away from it with ridiculous performances such as his now iconic fake clone on Haven Sea site. We know how good he is, we only saw it in spells. It will be important that Yampi gets the best out of him, and we've already seen the improvements in their off-season run. Vitality hadn't competed in any preseason events since their trip to India in 2023, and Project Blender ended up with a respectable 3rd place run out for the group. Profek was arguably on for the title of Rookie of the Year if you discount Kayak in a league of his own. It was only at the business end of the season where he dropped off in the final moments. I expect him to be one of the highest fraggers in this team, as he just seems to get better and better every passing year he plays, and VCT has been no different. The elephant in the room to be addressed is the fact that they cannot compete with Sayonara until Masters Santiago. Although it's understood that if the team were to qualify, then Unfake would keep his spot on the team temporarily. For him, hopefully, we get to see a bit more of his individual ability with the calling now placed on Yampi instead, and the benefits of a changing culture with a new system in action. He has huge shoes to fill in the prospect that is Sayonara, which we've been waiting to see take to a VCT stage for the last 2 years. Undoubtedly, this may also cause some issues with role, as I know that Vitality would love to have played double duelist. It would make more sense for Unfake to just be on the initiator that we expect from him. Chronicle is the signing which elevates this team to another level and lends weight to this project. A landmark player in this region and beyond, putting his faith into Vitality's rebuild confirms the hopes that many had for this team to be a true contender. The fact that he was also willing to move back to more of an anchor sentinel rather than his traditional flex that we saw in FNATIC previously continues to imply the trust that he has in the players around him to perform. On the other hand, how they handled the announcement for Chronicle once the leaks hit left a sour taste in the mouth of many fans. Coupled with comments made at the London-based organisation's launch event and overall fan sentiment towards this Goliath, it's already started what looks to be an exciting rivalry with FNATIC heading into 2026. This Vitality core are no strangers to grudge matches though, making up the BBL team which won its regional derby against FUT every single time last year, including the longest map in VCT history. A derby which they hadn't seen back-to-back success in since 2020. Even with a sub for kickoff, I still think this new Vitality side have the drive to make it to a Masters event. This team has too much quality overall to miss out. If they are able to make it that far, it will be living proof of the culture change which we've seen in a team which struggled with its chemistry so much just a year ago. And that's it for my team report on this stage of VCT EMEA. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to go to Masters Santiago. And I'm sorry the video's a little bit late. I am feeling sick. I hope you can't tell. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.